The theater I was in was practically empty. And this is on release date. Did anyone expect this movie to be good? After failing to appeal to kids with emojis last year, Sony's attempt of a cash grab this year is about Slender Man. Right off the bat, I'm gonna say, yeah, it sucked. Let's talk about the technical aspects first. The cinematography in this movie was bad. It was nothing but desaturated close-up shots that cut almost every 5 seconds between whoever was talking at the moment. I don't think there was a single shot in this movie that wasn't handheld. Speaking of handheld, I don't know what the budget for this movie was, but this looks like it was shot on a handheld cam for the most part. There were a couple of cool shots in the movie, but there's so many cuts between the scenes that you can hardly notice it. Okay, so the movie doesn't look good, so how's our main characters? Like all teenagers in horror movies, our main cast are boring bland characters that you couldn't give a crap about. The dialogue between them is corny. Right when they first started talking, I literally mumbled out, "Oh my god." Can I also talk about how they did the Slender Man in this? So yeah, the Slender Man is like known in this movie, but not in the way we know him. We know him as like a video game character kind of thing, but in this movie he's kind of like a ancient legend, kind of Bloody Mary sort of thing. But they'll Google Slender Man and they'll get results. There's even a Slender Man Wikipedia. I don't know if it's the actual one, but it looked like it. Also, they'll be looking at pictures of it, and it's the ones you can find on Google Images, like the classic ones, Der Ritter, or the one that appeared on Something Awful, or whatever that one website was. And there'll just be multiple pictures of him and drawings of him, and I can swear to God, you can find these drawings on Google Images. I mean, there's trying to stick to the lore, but then there's just not coming up with anything original. So 4 high school girls overhear a group of guys talking about summoning the Slender Man. So they go to a website, which I'm sure is the Slender Man Wikipedia or something, and they watch a video telling them to close their eyes and listen for 3 bells. And that's it. They watch a spooky video and then creepy things start happening. Sound familiar? Yeah, I wasn't expecting a ripoff of The Ring going into this movie. It even has the weird creepy footage that the cursed Ring tape had. Heck, the first girl, Katie, disappears 7 days after they watch the video. So after this happens, with absolutely no build up to her disappearance, the other 3 investigate her disappearance, and then it's nothing but a bunch of fake outs and nothing you haven't seen before after that till about the end. The scares in this movie were borderline laughable. Each of the girls have their own run-ins with the Slender Man, but they all turn out to be fake outs, so whenever it tries to do another scare, you're anticipating the fake out, so all of the suspense is gone. In the first one of the girls hears a noise and she goes downstairs, and she sees Slender Man's silhouette in the living room. So she runs upstairs and locks her and her little sister, and then there's something on the other side of the door trying to get in. But it turns out to be a fake out because someone starts talking on the other side eventually. Turns out it's Katie's father. He blames the one girl for the disappearance of his daughter and that it was something to do with a cult about the Slender Man. But then you realize that the scare made no sense because earlier when she went downstairs she was calling out and got no response. The father broke into their house to talk to her. He isn't just gonna stand there when she's calling out to him. Also, his physique was nowhere near that of the silhouette, so that's just one of the many problems this movie had. Another problem? So later they decided to break into his house to see if Katie left anything behind. But instead of sneaking in like normal people while he's asleep, they have one of the girls ring the doorbell to wake him up and distract him while the other 2 sneak in behind the back. Why didn't they all just sneak in while he was asleep? I mean, it showed that he had alcohol and pills. So then they find Katie's laptop, and I guess Katie didn't mind sharing her password because they just happened to know it. They then see that she was on this website dedicated to the Slender Man where people share their footage of their encounters with him. And the footage on this website, it straight up looked like the fan films people were uploading back when Slender was popular on YouTube. So this leads into the most lazy form of exposition because some random person who happened to be a friend of Katie starts sending messages on the laptop basically explaining them what to do about the Slender Man. So they end up going into the woods, they find this random tree stump, and they each have to make a sacrifice of something they love so they can get Katie back. So some of the things they sacrifice have some meaning, like one girl tears up a picture of her and her dead father, but then one girl just destroys some clay pot she made when she was 5. And for some reason, they have to put blindfolds on because if they see the Slender Man's face, they'll go crazy. And immediately after being told this, one of the girls takes off her blindfold, not once, but twice, and surprise, surprise, there's Slender Man. And boy does he look bad. They got an actual person to play Slender Man, but you can hardly tell because he looks CGI'd and it's horrible. I actually think the CGI of him in the games look better. You can tell how bad it is because they hardly do anything to hide him in this. One of them will look and turn around and oh, there he is just off in the distance. Or hey, here he is, he's right up close. So they all keep having run-ins with him throughout the movie, but every time there's a run-in with him, it just turns out to be another fake out. And the setup to one of them makes absolutely no sense. One of the girls is gaining exposition through Google and comes across an article. So she copies the author's name of the article on her computer, and you'd expect her to do a Google search on it, right? No, she goes to a library to see if there's a book by that person. You want to know why they did that instead of just looking them up? Because they needed another setup scare sequence so they could have another fake out. She ends up running into the Slender Man, then he touches her face, but then she's faceless all of a sudden. But it was either really bad CGI or they put a mask on her face and it's borderline laughable. But this turns out to be another fake out because she's fine a couple seconds later. And then there's one part where they have multiple fake outs in a row with the same character. Something scary happens and then she wakes up. It's a dream. And then immediately another thing happens, but then she wakes up again. And I don't know what the rules are for Slender Man. They're not really clear on it in this. But each girl gets affected differently by him. Like one of them ends up going into some sort of trance. Who we don't even see die, by the way. They just go to her house. She's in this trance. And then it just cuts to them in another scene like they didn't even try doing anything to help her. And then another one of the girls ends up going crazy and trying to kill herself. But then the last one who had the multiple fake outs, all she keeps having are these weird dream sequences like some ripoff of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And speaking of rules, what's the time limit on when Slender Man finally gets you? Because they're not clear on that. Because some people will watch the video and then nothing will happen to them for about a week. But then someone else will watch the video and then immediately stuff starts happening to them. So one of the 4 girls who gets affected last after having 2 fake outs in a row discovers her little sister having panic attacks. As I said, each person is affected differently by the Slender Man. So she goes under to urgent care in the hospital, and you're supposed to care about this, that she's dying or something. But you don't feel that connection between the two because they only had 2 scenes together with about maybe 4 sentences spoken between them. So she goes to her little sister's laptop because I guess she just knows everyone's laptop password in this movie. And then she discovers her little sister did the same thing in the woods with giving up something you love. But through more exposition, we come later to find out that the only thing you can give up to the Slender Man is yourself. So in order to save her sister that we've only had about 2 scenes with, she goes into the woods to give herself up to the Slender Man, okay? So she's face to face with him, and then like she tells him, "Take me." But then 5 seconds later, she starts running away from him for no reason. Slender Man then grows horrible CGI tentacles and starts chasing her. She then runs into a tree, which turns out to be him or something. Like you can see him. It looks like someone took a picture of him and they just lowered the opacity on it. So then she gets absorbed into the tree or something, and I guess this saves her little sister, because then a minute later, the little sister is narrating the end of the movie, explaining that we're the cause of the Slender Man virus or something, and this just comes out of nowhere because they don't do enough explanation on this. But this narration comes out of nowhere because there wasn't any other narration in the movie, and then the movie just ends after that. So the movie felt lazy and boring. None of the scares were any good. Slender Man looked horrible and none of the characters were interesting. This was clearly a cash grab by Sony, once again, to take advantage of something that was popular 6 years ago. I don't recommend anyone seeing this. There's nothing new it offers as a horror movie, and anything that it tries doing, it does lazily and boring. I don't know what the budget for this movie was, but clearly they've made their money back, but I don't think they're going to be making that much money off of it because, as I said, the theater I was in was practically empty. And it was nothing but people my age. Probably people who saw Slender when it was popular back in middle school, and then they go to see what this is, and it's like, oh wow, this sucks. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony tries doing a Five Nights at Freddy's movie a couple years from now. So that was the review, kind of back into these. I know it's just me by myself again, but I just wanted to get this review out ASAP. Yeah, more reviews coming with more people. So I'll see you in the next review.